Hi, and welcome everyone to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. Today we are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. Hello, everyone. It's always such a joy to see you here again. And today I'm super excited because I have a show I've been personally really looking forward to. But again, thank you so much to reiterate for joining us. You are seeing us on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, available at 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Please join us in one of the various chat rooms. We stream all over social media, so we would love, as we always do, to have you pop on in. Yes, Wednesday is a new show for me, but we've had so many wonderful guests that I decided to include another day, and I'm just so grateful for it. It's been absolutely divine. So tonight we're diving into a riddle left behind by one of history's greatest minds, Nikola Tesla. He was a man who dreamed up the modern world. He didn't just obsess over electricity. He was captivated by a simple numerical pattern. And he famously said, if you only knew the magnificence of the numbers 3, 6, and 9, you would have the key to the universe. For most of us, these are just numbers on a clock face, but for Tesla, they were a very blueprint of reality. Our guest today is a multi-talented woman by the name of Jodi Jones. She has been exploring this code not just as a piece of history, but as a practical framework for creation and consciousness. Jodi Jones is a world-class medium, a medical medium. She's an empath and so much more. And of course, I'm going to have her tell us all about herself. And she's here to lead the sensitives, the seers, and the energetically, and to crack open their original blueprint. So tonight, amongst many other topics that we're going to just ease into wherever spirit takes us, are Nikola Tesla, and we're going to look into whether these numbers are merely a mathematical curiosity, or do they possibly hold a genius physics of consciousness, the very frequency that governs our consciousness. So let's welcome Jodi. Hi, so nice to have you here.
Hi, Carolyn. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yes, me too. And I'm going to hope that a lot of our listeners pop into the chat. Like I said, this is kind of new Wednesdays. We just implemented a third streaming day to our roster. But as I said, it's been great. We've had so many wonderful people as yourself. So tell us about yourself. How did you get started? I know you said you were an empath originally, as we were talking earlier. Maybe you can kind of walk us down that and tell us, like, how did you create jodijones.com and what's your motivating force behind your work?
Wow. Yeah. So I was saying to Carolyn before we started today, when I show up and do, any kind of live event, I usually let spirit do the heavy lifting so that, we know that there's purpose to what we're coming here to talk about. So I'll share a little bit about, my kind of story and how I got to be where I am. And so I did, I get asked the question a lot, when did you become a psychic or a medical medium? How did that happen for you? Were you born like that? And my answer is that I was born an empath. So an absolute empath. And I feel like, the empaths are starting to come out of the empathic closet now. So we are starting to understand that being an empath is not a sign of weakness or something that's not a curse. We're starting to realize that, we are the beings on this planet that hold the highest amount of light. And so having said that, that means that we have a big mission to clear density on the planet. Now, becoming a psychic and a medium, I feel like, is something that we're chosen to do. And definitely, the road that they took me through was, they often refer to it as the long and winding road. And so my kind of entry point into it started back in 2008, where I had just had my third baby, and I started to have some physical stuff going on. I was having gallbladder issues, I was having liver issues. And at the time, I didn't really know, I was probably like everybody else, and, didn't really know what my gallbladder was, really wasn't sure what my liver did. It's funny, isn't it funny as humans how we like have these human vehicles, but we kind of don't read the owner's manual,
Mhm.
given the owner's manual. And so I started having these problems, and I actually, I had a choice. I had a choice to continue with the pregnancy so I was on my third pregnancy. And the doctors at the hospital said, listen, you need your gallbladder out. So you have a choice. You can get the gallbladder out, which means you're probably going to lose your baby,
Oh.
or you can, try and wait and then see, and then do the surgery after. And I was like, my husband and I were like, it's a no-brainer. We definitely are going to have this baby. So that, led me into, the winding Western medicine world, which again, love everybody's comments on your experiences through that. That it's very limited. They don't have a lot of resources. They're great, if you're in a car accident and you need to be resuscitated, but for everything else, they're not so good at. So I needed to find, some help, and I found a great naturopathic doctor, and she helped me to heal through my pregnancy. So my baby was born healthy and I was better. And it just started to be that towards, the end of that relationship with that naturopathic doctor, I was showing up and teaching her things. So it was, and I knew right away that I needed to know more about alternative medicine. And so I started to go to school to become a registered acupuncturist, and I studied traditional Chinese medicine.
Oh, wow.
And so I did that, and I'm going to share this little story, because this is when we
Of
talk about
course.
synchronicities. Spirit's always telling us that there's no such thing as an accident, and there's no such thing as a coincidence. But we are governed by synchronicities, which is very cool.
Mhm.
So when I was going to school, my teachers would often talk about a lady by the name of Edith Bruce. And Edith was a medium, a psychic. She worked with numerous guides. She was a channel. And this was my first step into anything that was woo woo or different.
Mhm.
I had never even, I think, even heard what a channel was. I had no idea. So to me, it was like all of this, like, wow, what is this stuff? This is really cool.
Mm.
And so they would tell us stories about Edith, how she would show up and she could do psychic surgeries. Her team would come in and channel, and they would like heal people's gallbladders and all of these miraculous things. Very much similar to Edgar Casey style teachings
Yeah.
and healings, if anybody knows Edgar Casey, who I didn't know anything about either when I started all of this. But at any rate, I finished my program, and then I started working in a medical building. So where I had my first practice, my first office. And very soon into seeing patients in my little tiny office, I remember reaching out to one of my teachers and saying that I knew they talked about Edith Bruce and that she was still in Ontario somewhere. And I can't remember how the conversation went, but they ended up saying to me, oh, actually, we never told you this, but she's actually in a nursing home in the town that you live in. Now, this is strange because I went to school in a big city, Toronto, Ontario. I live in a tiny little town in Ontario, about an hour and a half northwest of there. So for them to come out and say, "Oh, by the way, we never mentioned this to you before, but Edith is actually in a nursing home in the town that you live in," it was like,
Mm.
wow, like it was like, wow, okay. And I had such awe for this woman. When I was like, do you think that the family would mind, or she would mind, if I went and introduced myself? Like, just to, I'd read her book, I had heard so much about her. And they were like, I'm sure it wouldn't be a problem. And so I was so nervous, but I did it because I knew that there was a calling. I knew that, like, again, synchronicities lining up. And so I showed up at her nursing home, and this is strange. So my office would be here. The nursing home was right behind my office, like that,
Wow.
right? So I go into the nursing home. I, say I'm here to see Edith Bruce, and sign me in, and I'm, they take me up to her floor, and she was actually on the dementia floor. So she was, at the time, she was 96 years old. She
Oh,
had dementia. And so when I went to go and meet her, the first meeting that we had, she grabbed my hand and she looked me in the eyes and she said, "He is here with you."
oh,
And that was the last thing that she ever said to me before she passed.
oh,
So
wow.
from that point on, she never spoke another word. And so on that day, I visited her with her for a while. I sat there, I talked to her. Of course, she
Mhm.
didn't communicate back, but I could feel her presence, and I could feel, all of that around her. And I brought her back to her room. And as I was settling into her room, I looked out her window, and her window faced my window of my clinic office window.
That is, talk about synchronicities.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
Yes. So for several months, I would go in between my patients. I would go to see Edith, and I would bring her, she liked the Bible, so I would read the Bible to her. And then she passed.
Mm,
And it's strange here. So I went to go and see remember, at this point, I'm not doing any psychic stuff, no mediumship stuff. No, I've just studied traditional medicine, Chinese medicine, acupuncture. And so I went to go and see a local psychic, um, medium. Chris Stiller is his name, so local to us. And I was like, okay, so Edith is now on the other side. So now she can talk to me, and I can,
yeah.
she can tell me what all this means. Cause, like, what does it mean now that? And so I went and I saw Chris, and Edith came through. And the only thing that she said was George. And that was the name of her husband. So I instantly knew it to be, listen, Jodi, I was just with you like a couple weeks ago, and I'm seeing my husband now that I haven't seen for so long. I'm going to be busy with him. And so I left that with, like, wow, this is like, there's so much about the stuff we don't see, the
Yeah.
afterworld, I was like, I needed to know more about this. And it was around that time that I started having some really strange things happening in my practice. So I had patients who would come on my table, and they would have a bad back, or something was wrong, headaches, whatever it may be. I would do my acupuncture, I would do my acupressure, all of that, and they would leave completely fixed. Like
Wow.
like miracles happening, like, wow, what did you do? This is magical. And I knew right away that there was, an unseen force that was working with me
Mm,
behind the scenes, because I knew that I wasn't that talented. I knew that I didn't have all that talent. Now, at the same time, though, this is where the whole empath story, comes in. At the same time, I started having really strange physical things happen to me. So I was having bouts of dizziness, bouts of vertigo. I was feeling strange things. I was all of a sudden really, really tuned into everything. So, as an example, I could hear the lights buzzing in my office,
mhm.
and they would bother me. I could hear somebody having a conversation, and I would feel the intensity of the emotions that were coming through.
Mhm.
And I started picking up things from my patients. So, as an example, I had a patient come in on my table and she had a broken blood vessel in her eye.
Mhm.
And we weren't treating that. We were treating something else, but she had a noticeable, if you've ever seen it, it's
Oh,
very
yeah.
scary looking. It's very so we did her session, everything was fine. And the next morning I woke up and I looked in the mirror and I had a broken blood vessel in my eye. So I
Wow.
knew that there was this whole energy transference thing was, was happening. And I know now that it's very interesting because I didn't jump in and watch a million YouTube videos or go and read a whole bunch of books.
Mhm.
I didn't,
Mhm.
for whatever reason, whether it was, spirit knew that my life was busy. I had 3 kids and a husband and a business but I know now that what they did was they kept me very separated from other perceptions of things. So they didn't want anything to cloud my ability to be able to be a clear channel, to be able to receive clearly. And that's kind of the start of it. And what they were doing is they were helping me to become what they call a hollow bone. And
Mm.
so a hollow bone is when a channel or a medium literally has to be the conductor, the receiver for the beings, the spirit that they're channeling without any distortion or interference. Does that make sense, kind of?
Absolutely.
And so it's very interesting how I had very little knowledge about anything ethereal or anything
Mm.
that was, of course, I had heard of Dolores Cannon and, a lot of the
Yeah, the
gurus and
key
the guys.
players. Yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't know the details of what they talked about. And it's funny because I can remember at times people would say, "Oh, well, have you heard about this?" And I'd be like, "No, I haven't." And
Mm.
I felt like there was something wrong with me because, like, well, why don't I know about this? Am I right? And now I understand it's because they didn't want me to have any preconceived notions about anything.
Right.
They wanted me to be clear and be able to receive the inputs of the actualities. So, not just a human created, this is what this means, but an actual breakdown of the frequencies of it. And that's how kind of all started. And then, I did start working with a local medium. I sat in a medium circle, practicing the nuts and the bolts of how you work with
Mhm.
clients on that. And the transition went from my acupuncture practice to, working with spirit as a medium. So meeting
Mhm.
a medium that brings in and channels loved ones that have passed over in spirit. That was the first stepping stone that they had me do. Now I know that they had me do that because as an empath, I had a lot of work to do around compassion.
Mhm.
And so nothing will teach you more compassion and how to hold space than sitting face to face with a mother that has lost a child,
Oh,
or
goodness, yeah.
a spouse who has lost their soulmate. So that was the first, step into doing this work that they had me do. And at that time, it was, I was clairvoyant, so I could see spirit. Then they worked on my clairaudience so that I can hear them. Then, of course, the clairsentience came in, so the feeling, the being able to feel and know. And that then progressed into doing the medical mediumship. So they then took me through what they call the Great Rebuild, where about 3 years ago, so not a long time ago, so 3 years ago, I got really sick. Like
Oh.
I was experiencing a ton of neurological symptoms. I was having migraines, vestibular disorders. It's like over 46 symptoms that I had, which no doctor could diagnose, no test could, give me the information on it. And it was very similar to the path that I took in 2008, except for this time, they had me really go through and start seeing shamans and healers and energy workers and
Mm.
you name it. I went really full depth into all of that. And it was the same thing. I went through all of that and came out without any answers. Now, I know what they were doing now was
Yeah.
they were building a program through my experiences for empaths and highly sensitives. And they created a program called the 369 Blueprint Method. Now,
Oh.
it's so very, very cool because even when you were doing the intro and you were talking and the words you were using, so you said blueprint several times.
Yeah,
So empaths have a different blueprint than any other species on the planet,
absolutely.
which is very interesting. They used the 369 frequency, so the Tesla inspired, information about the frequencies, which again, I knew who Nikola Tesla was just from, his quotes that
Sure.
everybody uses, but I didn't know anything about him. And so when they said to me, listen, we're going to create a program through you using these frequencies, I was like, okay, I have no idea what that's going to look like or how it's going to happen, but they did it. They did it. And our program goes through everything because here's the thing about empaths is that, and this is why no one program works for us. And this is how we feel like we're not being felt or heard or seen. And this is because we are so complex energetically that we need to be supported body, mind, and soul simultaneously, always. And this is why, for me, if I would go and do the diet or the exercise, it wouldn't quite get me there. If I would go and do the mind stuff, the manifestations, the affirmations, it wouldn't quite just get me there. And when I would go and do the soul work, the meditation, the prayer,
Mhm.
it still didn't quite get me there. And every single person that I went to go see had a very specific expertise on one of those areas, right? And so what I've learned through this process is that, again, because our frequency is so different, our blueprint is different, that we need that simultaneous support of going through and having that support. And spirit also, made it super important for me to understand that everything is frequency. And, this is one of the things I feel like that they were working through Nikola Tesla to, be able to share with him. But remember, every single time spirit comes through a vessel and chooses the vessel to teach through, so, through whether Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, Jesus, Buddha, any of the, the
Yeah.
vessels that they choose to create through, we have limitations based on the human filters. So for me, they needed my avatar to have the experience of an empath, right? To come through what they call the parent portals, very, very specific parent portals. We choose our parents so that we
Yeah.
create the blueprints, right? And part of the empath blueprint is that we often come from, very unsettling beginnings, right? We come from through a lot of trauma. There's a lot of wounds. There's a lot of abandonment. There's
Yeah.
a lot of lessons, like really a lot of life lessons.
Oh, you said it.
But we now understand, the purpose of it. We understand the purpose and the reasoning for it. And it's interesting because they also show me often that there's not just a general one size fits all empath. There's a spectrum of being
Mhm.
empath,
Yep.
right? So there's these varying aspects on there, but we all hold very similar um, frequencies, and that's how
Mhm.
we know that working through the frequency of the 3, the 6, and the 9. That's how we support ourselves the most. So very simply, and I'll just share quickly, and then you can ask me questions about it. But
Yeah, yeah.
3 being the frequency of stabilization. So if we can put that frequency to our state of being at any given moment and say, am I in a state of 3, a 6, or a 9? Then I know how to bring in other frequencies to support myself. So, a state of 3 being needing stabilization. So, needing to stabilize, which I feel like most empaths are there most of the time.
Mhm.
The frequency of 6 represents the frequency of cleansing or purging, of releasing, right? So important because as empaths, we are energetic sponges. Most of us are transmuters. So we're bringing collective energy all of the time, and then we're transmuting and creating light from it. Big mission, huge, huge mission. And then the 9 frequency is about elevation. So this is where we are literally, you know, connecting with our higher selves. We're rising in frequency, which then has the ripple effect for the collective. And that's also a huge, huge, important part of the empath mission.
Wow, I love that. I've seen a lot of, videos and documentaries on Nikola Tesla, and it's so interesting because, like, as an empath myself, I'm always attracted to something for a purpose, and like we were talking about earlier, the synchronicities, and even Heidi in our chat, who I love dearly, she's one of our star sisters. Um, she recognizes that too. She's a very spiritual person as well. And I think as an empath, we go through a lot more in life than people that don't recognize their empathic abilities. I think we all are capable of all the clairs. Like, we all have these abilities, but I think as empaths, we tap into them more. And it's interesting, most of the people have journeyed through it like you, through pain and suffering and traumas. And we've had to do a lot of shadow work and a lot of self reflection because, at least for me, I never had the proper boundaries. And empaths sometimes attract the wrong people. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Well, because
Yeah.
it's all about frequency, and the planet Earth is about, it's governed by some very specific laws, and one of it is the law of resonance. And so you can think about, Spirit shows me all of these words that we use for things, they're actually, activation portals into what they call life lessons. So you can think of it as in a, here's your book, here's the curriculum, because here's the course that you're going to be taking,
Hmm.
right? And so absolutely, there's again, this is when it's not a one size fits all, but there's so many, of these lessons: energetic boundaries, self-worth,
Yes.
self-love, self-care. Compassion is a big one for me. Trust, faith,
Yeah.
all of these. They're like little, university courses that every empath is automatically enrolled into when you step through the parent portals. So yay
Yeah.
empaths. Look what we get
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, and since the telepathy tapes came out, a lot of people looked at this subject as woo-woo stuff, and
Right.
now people are taking it a lot more seriously, and I love that we are. And it's funny because even like joining this network um was definitely a divine guidance for me, because I feel, when people leave comments and tell you how, that show helped to change their life or guided them in a different direction, these things are all divine, and they're all part of, like, I think, my responsibility, your responsibility for being here.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
one of the biggest, I think obstacles that empaths have is that we are givers. We are
Right.
automatically givers. And definitely encourage your listeners to let us know in the comments if you are somebody who, experienced that, coming into that distortion or that dysfunction, where you had to be the fixer, you had to be the.
Right. Always. Yeah.
Yeah. And for sure, part of that is understanding, and you kind of get stuck in this crutch where we're constantly giving and we're not receiving. So
Right.
we become very poor receivers. And because of that, and because we're so energetically sensitive, we're impacted. So, everything impacts us so much.
Mhm.
It's that rebuild that we get to do. So, empaths have to do the work more than anybody else does, always. This is because even though you may not be hanging your shingle up as a healer or psychic or a medium or whatever it is, professionally doing the work, wherever you are strategically placed on this planet, you have a purpose to hold the light. Now, you can't hold the light unless you work on releasing your density. It's an
Mm.
energy exchange. The human vessel is very limited energetically, right? So, if we want to bring in more light, we have to release more density. And so, what does that look like? That's, healing the wounds, healing the traumas, all of
Yeah.
the spiritual stuff. But this was a big component for me, was the missing piece in mine, is that I wasn't optimizing my human vehicle.
Mm.
In the spiritual community, there's, lots of people talking, and it makes sense if you think about, look at Edith Bruce. She was doing psychic surgeries. Well, if somebody can come in and do a psychosurgery or pray over me, why do I have to make sure that I'm eating fruits and vegetables? And why do I have to, right? But that's one of the key components to understanding the formula of the empath, is that our human vehicle needs to be optimized.
Gosh, so true.
And the big interesting thing about this is, when spirit breaks it down very simply in frequency, again, if we think about frequency, what is the major frequency distortion on this planet? It's pathogens. So,
Mhm.
spirit says that every being on this planet has what they call the human condition.
Mhm.
And the human condition has different layers to it, but the energetic layer of it, on the physical aspect, is having a host. You're a host, your physical body, to viruses and parasites and bacteria and all of the toxins that feed these beings, because they are beings, right? They
Yeah.
they breathe and think and move and all of that. And if you look at the state of the planet right now, we have chemtrails, we have GMO foods, we
Oh,
have
God, yeah.
everywhere you look, we have all of these distortion feeders, right? So we have to make sure that we are optimizing our human vehicle. And that means we have to kill the bugs. In all simplicity, we have to kill the bugs so that we can bring in more light, so that we can then hold more light. And then we can do the wound healing and the trauma healing and all of that. But they show me, it's like your human car has to have wheels on it. You have to be able to
Yeah.
drive the car. And for me, it was a part that I was overlooking, because it was easy for me to sit in meditation. And it was easy it's all empaths have it very easy. We can go out of body very easily. We can connect with spirit very easily. It's something that we do. It's coping that we do. The hard part is being in that human vehicle and being safe and feeling grounded
Mm.
and feeling empowered and knowing your ability to hold light. That's the hard part.
Yeah, that's so true. I know for me, like discovering how to create boundaries for myself didn't happen till much later in life. And as Heidi alluded to before, you're always the fixer. You're always the person that everybody comes to fix their problems or to sit there and listen to them for an hour. And that's very soul draining. Like we feel the need to do it because we genuinely care and
Mhm.
want to help. But at the same time, like you said, we're not taking care of our body and our needs. And it's absolutely essential, for us to do that. And I love the way you worded it earlier. So, like for me, when I researched 3, 6, and 9, it was all very mathematical. They were showing how different things have 9 points and 6 points and quantum mechanics. And it got really mathematical. And then I watched and read where they broke it down and said and your description was close to it. 3 is about like creation, 6 is about structure, and 9 is about completion. So it's kind of like a trinity, right? I mean,
Mhm.
they work together in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you say that it was because of course I didn't know, but it makes sense that it would be very mathematical. Now, funny story for math is my absolutely worst subject.
Oh,
I did
me
grade
too.
9 algebra 3 times.
Me too.
It was it was just horrible. So you
Yeah.
start talking in mathematical equations and I
Yeah.
don't understand your language. It doesn't equate. But I understand frequency. And so I
Right.
understand the simplicity of frequency. And this is where, again, part of the human condition is that we have created these words, we have created these formulas, we have
Mhm,
created these,
mhm.
and they're very much, an individual perception of something. We forget this, right? We forget that, as
Yeah.
an example, the Bible. There's, Spirit has shown me that there is very little actuality in the Bible. It's all perception. It's human perception. It's also part of a program and agenda. So, they put this information together. And for those of us who are highly sensitive empaths, we can intuitively sense that something is not right about something,
Oh gosh, yeah.
right? We get this, hmm, I'm not receiving that well. It doesn't add up for me. And when we do the work, when we start to do the actual work on ourselves, our clarity comes back online. Spirit had been saying for a few years now in all of the readings that we were doing that they said there were going to be more and more of you that come back online. And I
Mm,
didn't understand what they meant about it, but I do now because when we come back online, we are very good telepathic communicators.
mhm.
We don't have to use language to be able to describe things. We instantly can gauge a room or how somebody's feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We have all this abilities. Now, the thing to get back to what you were saying about your boundaries and being, the caretaker is that empaths will often get stuck in this level of distortion where they use the outside stuff as distractions.
Yes.
So, meaning, oh, you know what? It's my husband has this problem, or my child has this problem, or my mother has this problem, and I have to help them with it.
Yes.
And so we often spend, and they're just saying right now, a lot of our time living outside of ourselves. And so when we're living outside of ourselves, we don't get to do the deep work that's required,
Mhm.
right? And this is why they're just saying to me, an empath has the very big mission of entering the portal of know thyself.
Mm.
And this is, again, in the simplicity of it, what kind of frequencies is are you holding in your vessel? What kind of frequencies have created your blueprint that you are maneuvering through and living through and experiencing through? And do you have the identity? Do you have the ability to identify what those frequencies are? And in the simplicity of it, this is where I love the way my spirit team breaks this down, because we don't have to go in and talk therapy for 12 years about our traumas and our wounds and we can see things for what they are, which is a frequency, right?
Right.
We are meant to learn and grow and experience through the frequencies, and then we are meant to release them. That's why we are in the human vehicle. The human vehicle only has limited capacity to hold so much. It only has so much space. So as empaths, we really need to get good at picking and choosing what comes and what goes.
Gosh, that's so true. And it's funny because all of us go through some type of trauma in life, if not multiple ones, whether they're mental or physical. And, I think as an empath, I was always so more concerned about my loved ones and friends and people in my network than focusing on myself, because ego to me was always like a bad word. It was always something that I tried to suppress because it never felt good. Like whenever I let my ego get in front of me, I always got like a red flag, like Carol Ann, don't. This is your ego speaking. So you're intuitive with yourself too. Like
Mm.
you can hear yourself giving you pep talks and telling you like what not to do, what not to think about. And I love that aspect that we can be so finely tuned into that. And I think that being an empath is both a gift and a heavy burden at times, right?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I mean, and we can and again, that's very if we look through the human lens of it, we can, think and feel it's a gift and a curse at the same time. When spirit shows me the curses, they're literally ways for us to level up.
Mm,
So as an example, if we have somebody that comes to us as a client and it's somebody who has had tremendous pain and suffering and you name it, all of this stuff going on, energetically, my spirit team has the ability to show us the big picture. They give us the eagle's eye view of it.
mhm.
And you can see that as all of this density starts to leave your field, that's only when you level up. So if we could flip the switch a little bit and just go into, our higher selves, our intuitiveness of knowing that, first of all, we come here to experience, period.
Right,
We come here to experience, period. It doesn't mean that we come here to experience only the rainbows and the unicorns and the light and the love,
right.
right? We come here to experience everything. And I love that you bring the ego aspect into it because the human vehicle comes with certain accessories. And so the ego is one of those accessories, and the pain body is one of those accessories. And the ego energetically has a light side and a dark side to it, right? So, ego on the dark side of things, can have us in fear always, right? In the judgment, anger, hostility, rage, all of those are very much strong ego energies. But on the light side of the ego energy, there's motivation and
Right.
inspiration and drive and strength, right? All of that is that yin and yang that creates the ego energy. And then the same thing with the pain body. So the pain body holds, the light side of things, which is it has gone through many traumas and many hurts and many abandonments because it now truly knows the frequencies of compassion, right? And faith and
Yeah,
acceptance and
yeah,
balance and harmony. So when this is they're just saying, if we remember, we can flip the switch or shift the gears anytime we want. So as we're navigating this human experience and across our terrain, this particular theme comes up. If we strategically go, okay, so this requires my ego to step in so I can get through this, or
yeah,
this requires my pain body to step in so that we can get through this, then it becomes a little bit more of a game that we're playing, right?
yeah.
And less severity, as in, this is my curse and this is the way things have to
Right,
be. They
right.
would always say, always, and especially when I was struggling with things, the human aspect of things, they would say that uh, treat it as the game of life, the game
Mm.
of life.
I mean, it is a game. If you, especially, if you're believing that we're in a matrix sort of thing. I mean, and there's kind of like a lot of proof for that. So it's a little bit scary. But I find it interesting too that a lot of empaths like we've had some mention um we've had some mention in the comments that they have trouble with self-love. Like Heidi said, she's healing, but she's struggling with self-love. And then Carolina said, me too, always doing everything for everyone before her. Is that just a natural trait of an empath? Is that something that all empaths do? Like we tattooed with that?
Yeah, and you know what? Again, it's that distraction. It's much easier for us to go out of body, right? And be able to fix somebody or help somebody or heal somebody or guide
Yeah.
somebody, because the hard work is inside.
Yeah.
Right? This is, it's very interesting because so years and years and years ago, when I first started having all of the strange stuff that I was having, the neurological stuff, I went and saw a really, really gifted medical medium. It was the first time I'd been exposed to the whole world of medical mediumship, which is very different than regular mediumship.
Mhm.
And so when I sat in his office, he kept on looking over on the far corner of the room, and I was sitting right across from him, and I was like, "What are you looking at?" And he was like, "Well, your soul literally just keeps on jumping out of your body." And I
Wow.
was like, "Ah, that makes sense. That makes sense why I'm feeling ungrounded, why I'm
Yeah.
feeling energetically weak, while I'm." And the truth is that it's a coping mechanism that most empaths have. And one of the very
Wow,
human
never
ways,
heard of that.
yeah, and one of the very human ways of us doing that is, don't worry about how I'm feeling. Let's talk about you. Let's
Oh,
How do I help you? How do I fix you?
right.
That
My
when
goodness.
Yeah, when you're in that mode energetically, you are no longer anchored in here. You are working outside
Mm.
of the body.
So as you're jumping out, are you just, like, bouncing out and bouncing right back in? Like, did they describe what that means, like,
Yeah.
more
So
clearly? How does that work?
I mean, we have our ethereal cord, right? We have our anchoring cord
Yeah.
that connects us to the human vehicle. So
Yep.
when that cord is cut, we take an exit. So it's always there, but it's interesting because in the same way that, if you were in an accident, if you were in a traumatic accident, or um, you know, your soul's jarred out of the body, it does it in a safety mechanism because it knows that it doesn't require the body to be able to live, right? So it
Mm.
knows that if something is happening to the body, it can leave out of the body, and it because it knows that it's not going to be the end of the soul,
Mhm.
right?
So, like, when you astral travel at night, we're connected with our cord. So
Yes.
when you leave this earth, that cord severs. But when you're jumping out, that's done for protection, to protect yourself, or just to not cope. Like, I'm a little confused.
Yeah, so it's kind of both. It's a, intuitively our soul, our higher selves will leave the human vehicle, right? When it's required. So when there's but it also becomes this is where we bring in the human aspect of it, of neural circuitry. We bring in the
Mm.
actual science of it.
Mhm.
So as empaths, we have a lot of very strong pathways that we've created in our brain as to this happens and this is how I react.
Right.
So it's almost like they're just showing me, it's almost like an auto eject button. So if you were in a plane, you as a pilot, you know that you've got this button that you can press. So when the turbulence comes up or you know that you need to bail out, you can press the button and you have an exit out of the cockpit. It's the same thing. And so the soul intuitively, it's almost like energetically gets kicked out of the body, right? There's this
Wow.
um, but we come back into it because of course we can't navigate without being in the
Yeah.
vessel completely. And when you start to do the work, like really, really do the work, you will start to recognize how you feel when you are 100% in the body, when the soul, the higher self, is in the body, as opposed to it being kind of outside, kind of inside, coming back and forth all of the time. And I know that for me, that really started to change. Like when I went through my whole death and destruction and rebuild, that's when I really had to, you know, get into the know thyself and understand what that really means, right?
Yeah. Goodness. I just am trying to imagine. Do we all do that, or just do empaths do it more frequently? Like, does everybody soul jump just by natural, the natural desire to like protect yourself?
Yeah, and it's, it can be several things. They're just saying it can be a protection measurement. So, and a lot of empaths do that, but it can also be a density measurement. So, if you were somebody who, as an example, if you were, if you had a lot of addictions, you were drinking a lot, doing a lot of drugs, you were
Hmm.
eating food that was not good for you, all of this stuff takes up space in the vessel, right? So the energetic aspect of the soul just would feel uncomfortable in that density. Like imagine a room that only has so much space and you fill it with furniture and the soul is pushed into the far corner of the room,
Mm.
right? That's what happens energetically for us. There's like very, very limited space. And it's funny because I can remember long, long time ago when I would tune in with my higher self, my soul
Mhm.
energy. I would get this little visualization of a little tiny person sitting in the corner of back of my mind, in the very,
Mhm.
very back of my mind, just sitting there, like just quietly observing, because
Mhm.
the soul energy is very neutral, right? It's very, very neutral. But it just goes to show you how much density I had in my human vehicle, that my higher self, my soul energy was only being given a tiny little bit of space.
Wow.
And I feel like that is part of the human condition. That's that's part of the, and we can talk about people that talk about the soulless bodies. So I feel like the human condition has expanded to the point where there are near almost soulless bodies. So maybe the soul aspect within them is just a little tiny fraction of that
You know,
energy.
that's so interesting because two points. First, I had a dream this morning before I woke up that there was a gentleman and he was insisting on teaching me self-love. So I think that's interesting that we end up talking about this today. The other thing is, we always hear about non-player characters or NPRs. And I have said to other guests who are psychic and intuitives, I always ask that. Do you think there are some folks that are just born soulless?
Mhm.
Or do you think that everyone comes in with a soul and maybe if they become wicked or demonic, that soul leaves them or changes, maybe it morphs into something else. Like
Mhm.
how did you were just talking about that kind of
Yeah.
sort of. So maybe you can bring clarity. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, and I mean, and again, I've never really listened to anybody talk about the NPCs or I didn't even, I think it was my husband who kind of said something to me once, was like, "Have you ever heard of this?"
Yeah.
And whenever somebody says, "Have you ever heard of this?" I always allow my spirit team to step in first and give me like so I
Nice.
receive it in a very neutral way, which is how we know when we are stepping into our higher selves, our soul energy. It's very neutral, it's very expansive. It's
Hmm.
very okay, let's see. Let's see what this is about. And they clearly showed me that in order to incarnate on this planet, you need to be a soul. You need to have that spark
Yes.
within you that animates the human vehicle. So, no, there are no soulless beings that are born on this planet. What happens, though, is that you become filled with the density. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned demonic energies and all of that. Again, my spirit team shows it to me in just the simplest of frequency of it, right? So there are certain frequencies that vibrate in a very lower
Oh
state,
yeah.
right? And when something vibrates in a very lower state, as you can imagine, it's like a physical body. If your physical body is not doing a lot of movement, you're going to gain weight and you're going to get heavier and you're going to get bigger and you're going to get
Yeah.
denser. It's the same thing for frequencies. So if we are, as an example, bringing in foods that are not healthy, if we are smoking or drinking or doing things that are lower frequencies, if we are having thoughts that are about anger and resentment and bitterness and all of that,
Yeah.
All of that stuff is vibrating at a very slow, low
Yeah.
rate,
Yeah.
right? When that happens, it takes up space. It's the energy is compacted in the vehicle. Now, light comes in and it has to find a place to be able to expand in. If you have a tightly packed human container that has a very small amount of room, then the light has nowhere to go. Now, is it possible that that density fills up completely and you no longer have more light? If it's less than 1%, they're just saying, then
Yeah.
do you become an NPC? Yes, if that's the wording that we want to call it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, for
Yeah, and
sure.
I think that's important because I think that we use a lot of language to try to understand these things.
Mhm.
And of course, they use video games to kind of interpret that. So, non play a character comes from a video game because that was always the character that really didn't have anything to do with the actual game.
Oh,
They
really? I
were
didn't
just,
know that. Yeah.
yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. So they were always the character that, like, if you say you were in a game and you wanted to go shopping and pick up groceries, an NPC would be the person at the cash register, just kind of checking you out, you
Right,
know?
right.
So they really don't have anything to do with the game, but they're involved in it nonetheless. And I thought that was kind of a cool way to describe, because there are people like that, I think, that, and especially people that vibrate on a very low level, that do things that are evil and wicked and propagate darkness and negativity and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So, and I think we need to be, and especially as empaths, we need to be. But the good thing is I can spot one of them suckers a mile away.
Right,
And it's funny because so can my dog. Like,
right, right. Oh, yes,
dogs, yeah,
yes.
they're so good at
Yeah.
doing that, right? They
And
pick up
especially
the
if you have an
vibe.
empath dog. I've got an empath dog, my dog
Me
Maya.
too.
She's such a and she is so selective of who she likes and who
Yeah,
she doesn't like. Yes, they
yeah,
know. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
it's so cool. And I think we attract, like, this dog came to me. I didn't go looking for him. He
Right.
was just like, the universe was like, you need to own this dog. He was
Yes.
abused and traumatized, and I said, of course I'm going to get a dog like that. Of course. It made
Yes.
so much sense. But yeah, I'm just reading this comment. A cursive, I'm not so sure I understand. Tay, a cursive language forced upon us to a different interpretation to words or language, like a double-edged sword.
Absolutely. Yeah, so part of the
Yeah,
programming, right? So when, the dark agenda started, eh,
yeah,
on this planet, they started at the same time the light did. It came in at the same time.
yeah.
And, they know they're like the scammers that we have now. Like how many scammers we have? Like there's
Oh, God.
on my social media every single day, my
Yeah.
followers are sending me screenshots. Oh, there's somebody that's pretending to be you.
Oh, sure, yeah,
So they're very creative, and so the dark agenda is very much like that as well, and
yeah.
they know where the biggest energy sources are. So think about language. They know
Mhm.
that language is very programmable, right? They know that they can put frequencies into language. Any of the books that we read, any of the guides, the gurus,
Yeah.
the politicians, that anything that we put on a more of a pedestal, they're programmable. This is why very, very interesting, my spirit team has just recently, like in the last 6 months or so, started to refer to our brain as the AI brain.
Mm.
And they're doing this because they want us to be able to differentiate between the 2, the difference of it. And, we're stepping into this, I don't know if your followers follow this stuff, but empaths are very much affected and always have been by solar flares and geostorms.
Oh, gosh, yeah, we're having one today.
Yeah, we've had a massive, like, crazy last couple of days
Yeah,
with
the
our
nuts.
1111 portal.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very interesting though, because when that kind of energy is coming in, it's coming in with light. It's light codes, right? So it's coming in to upgrade us and change us. Every single time that comes in, though, there's a countering force of the dark.
Mm.
It's the game on earth, right?
Exactly,
Everybody wants the light, everybody wants the power. So
exactly.
when these two forces are coming in, this is where empaths especially need to be mindful of our energy and our own frequency, right? This is where, as Tay is saying on there, we need to be very, very mindful of what we receive,
Mm.
right? Because again, we have limited capacity to hold in the vessel, and we need to choose, making sure that we're choosing the light always.
Oh, I totally agree. And it's so interesting. I interviewed a gentleman who wrote a book on numbers, and he based his whole life and came out of poverty with this theory um, about numbers. And like you, I'm not great at math. Although as I got older, I became less afraid of it, and that helped me a lot.
Right,
I
right.
just said, I'm not going to be afraid of you anymore. Um, but why do you think we are so attracted to numbers? I mean, even in the comments, Heidi mentioned before she's always attracted to certain numbers. I don't have it in front of me, but and I just hear my friends going, "Oh, eight's my lucky number," and you know, and I know you did a lot of work with that three. What is that called? The 369 method? Is that
The 369 blueprint method, yes.
blueprint method? Now, did you develop that? Was that something you developed, or
So
was that something
it
you
was
were taught?
completely channeled through spirit. The
Oh,
entirety of the
wow.
program completely channeled by spirit, created by spirit, and led by spirit for sure. I mean, I have had to do all of the human work, the
Mm,
labor of, um,
yeah,
but yeah, everything that we've put into the program has come directly from spirit, which makes it different than any program out there because again, it's not, if I just showed up as Jodi Jones and taught to you, through my experiences, and I've had a lot of them because
yeah.
obviously they were creating the program through me, but you would get a very, very limited, lower vibrational explanation of it or teaching from it, right? There's a difference when we remove that human aspect from it. Of
Mhm.
course, the big picture comes into play, right?
So this technique, is it like a psychological tool um to focus like on intention? What exactly is this? Do you focus on an individual's energy with like the universal blueprint, or how does it work? Like, could you give us a summation?
Yeah, so really it's all about coming out of the mind, getting out of the mind and connecting with the body, right? So connecting with, again, the part of you that holds the most light or has the capacity to hold the most light, right?
Mhm.
And then understanding everything just in the simplicity of it, as in, does it feel light or does it feel heavy? Does it feel good or does it feel bad? And then knowing and recognizing what your vibrational state is at any given moment, and then knowing how to adjust that accordingly, right? This is with empaths, one of the things that we do. So I've got one of our live events. We do an energetic audit live every month and a half or so. And it's this month, it's on November 26th. It's a free event. And in it, one of the things that Spirit will have us do is we do these energetic check ins. So
Mhm.
we do this going in, first of all, and doing like a scan energy wise of feeling, where do we feel some density in the field? Is it emotional? Is it physical? What's the aspect of it? Is it somebody else's? One of the things that empaths have lots is we absorb other people's stuff, right? That's
Yes.
why our healing becomes so complicated because, what's ours and what's theirs, right? And so we have, our audience go through this energetic check-in. And what makes it different though is this, that they're just saying, when you start doing any of this work through intention, so when we open up the space to do our lives or in our membership portal when we do that stuff, we create the intention that we are helping everybody to create a little bit of space energetically so that your
Mhm.
spirit team comes in and the connection's stronger.
Oh, now that makes sense.
Right. And when you do that, then again, they're just saying it's the bird's eye view. So you have the ability to kind of be able to go in and check and see where your frequency is, where your base frequency is. And then my spirit team has the ability to go in and do energy healings, energy work. It's one of the tools that they use. They'll go in and they'll literally just clear density from people's field. It's not
Mm,
as complicated as we think. This is why, when they show us, like, the hours of talk therapy, or
yeah.
the hours of doing Reiki or acupuncture, even any of this stuff that has to have an accumulative effect, they show us that you just recognize it as being light or dark, so having density or lightness, and then have the intention to remove the density and clear it. And that's what they do in the group setting. They'll do a group healing. They'll clear the field of everybody. And then we
Mm.
have our the audience go in and receive a vibrational number. So we get them to get an
Oh,
initial check-in. So they get an initial check-in, and we'll be shown a number between 0 and 10 of where you are on the scale vibrationally. They'll get that number. Spirit goes in and does the work, the energy clearing, and then we ask them to go back in and check. And the number always changes. It always goes up in frequency.
mm,
And it just goes to show you, because, as an example, when we do medical mediumship readings on people, as soon as we tune into the field of the person we're working with, they are looking for density. They go right to where the density is. Now, they're calling it density, but somebody might call it a blocked artery, or somebody
right.
may call it an inflamed liver.
Yeah.
We have these human diagnoses that we put in there. Um, but when my spirit team goes in, they're literally just looking for light and density. And
So you think that through intention, by setting an intention, you can clear your own densities as well? So folks can do this. Is it done through like because I like to meditate and I always try to think about that
mhm,
before I meditate. Like I set an intention. Is
right.
that a good thing to do as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing, but remember, again, when we talk about the three aspects of it, going into the 3, the 6, and the 9 of it, we can address the ethereal aspect of it, right? So we can go through meditation, we can do the affirmations, we can do the positive thoughts, we can do all of that, but you have to address the physical aspect of it. So meaning, frequency needs to express itself. It doesn't just dissipate, it doesn't disappear. So we need to physically go in and actually create some movement. And when they're going in and doing work on groups or clients,
Mhm.
they are physically using energy, light energy, to move density. It has to be cleared. So can we do that on ourselves? Absolutely. Is it easier for us to go in and have somebody else do it for us? It's like, can you vacuum your entire house? Of course you can. Would it be nice if somebody came in and vacuumed your house for you? Yes, it's nice. But one of the things of us coming back online, and this, whole, you know, huge awakening that's happening on the planet, is those of us who have the ability to work with energy in the way empaths do, coming into that, remembering that we can do this, that
Yeah.
it's
But
not
Heidi
something
says
outside of ourselves.
right. Heidi just made a astute comment. She said it's always energy has to move. It's always, wanting to, I think, move, right? It's always in motion.
Yes. It's Think about everything as frequency again. So if
Yeah.
you look at everything as frequency, and again, it doesn't just disappear. Frequency is expressing itself. When we talk about the human body having a symptom, so say your shoulder is hurting you or your neck is hurting
Yeah.
you. Now, what you're feeling is you're feeling the conversation of the body part
Mm.
expressing the frequency that is it's engaging with, right? So if it's a denser frequency, so meaning a physical aspect, say a shoulder is hurt, there can be actual physical, density in there. So meaning you haven't been eating properly, so your blood is thick and sticky, you've got higher cholesterol, all of that. But there's also the emotional aspects layered in there as well, right? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling underappreciated? Is there trauma wounds or victim energy or lack energy? that compels, and then we have all this density that builds up.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes so much sense. It does. Do you meditate every day? Like, is that something a part of your healing ritual or
You know what's funny? And this is probably the last thing that any psychic medium should come up and say, because for years I had students that I taught medical medium or mediumship and psychic work too, and would say, you can't start doing this work unless you know how to meditate. You have
Mm,
to know how to meditate. Now, I don't meditate anymore, but here's the reason why I think I get away with it, because I try my best to experience throughout my day in a mindful way. And what I mean by that, it's the practice of mindfulness.
yeah.
So I am very good at allowing my higher self to step in and do the experiencing, and allowing, ego, pain, body, human aspect to sit back. And when we do that, that's the same exact thing that happens when we do meditation.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm
And
creating
and
space.
yes, I totally agree with that. And I think too, it's a misconception to think you have to meditate for 20 minutes 3 times a day. Like
Right.
I'll do short bursts of meditation where I'm just doing breathing and I get back like into a breathing zone. And that to me is meditation. So you could be in the shower and meditate, right?
Yes.
You can be anywhere and center yourself and take a
Whenever you
root.
are out of the mind, whenever you
Right.
are out of the mind and the mind is not making all of the everything, then
Yeah.
it's the same experience as meditation.
It really is. It really is. How do you handle because yes, I think we're having a global awakening. And it's funny because my spirits were talking to me a lot about awareness, that there's a big difference between being awakened and aware. Like I kept hearing that. So I started, doing some heavy soul searching on that. And I think that it's important to distinguish the two. So, yeah, there's a lot of people that are awakening spiritually, right?
Mhm.
We're stepping into different realms of consciousness too. But then I think there's a group of people that are just becoming aware. Maybe like it's the beginning of an awakening process, right? So
Mhm.
they're becoming aware of like the darkness and the deception and the lies that we've been told living as humans on this planet. And I think that merging the darkness and the light and like being able to walk within the two is very important in terms of growth, right? I mean, what's
Yeah.
your take
Yeah,
on all that?
absolutely. And so even if we just go into the vibrational aspect of those two different words, so if we look at the word awakening, right?
Yeah.
Frequency wise, it's much more rigid. It's more of a rigid experience. It's more of a, you have to do this and this is what it looks like and this is the next
Mhm.
step, and that's the whole awakening. It's very much being like implanted with codes, and you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it very much has been. When we talk about the word awareness, you can just feel it when you say that word. You feel this like open expansion that comes in,
Mhm.
right? Where they're just saying where anything is possible. So it's like this, it doesn't have to be this exact formula. It's a anything is possible. This is something that we forget, is that, we are master creators and empaths are master frequency generators.
Mhm.
That means that we essentially are creating everything that happens in our outside experience,
Right.
right? So that's that part of that coming back online and remembering that. And so if we remind ourselves that, okay, so here's the rule book or the playbook, but we don't have to use it.
Ah,
So how I have my experiences is can be completely different than how you have your
yeah.
experiences. And spirit is always saying to me, anything is possible. So, we have a podcast called Collective Silversations, and I
I
loved
saw
it.
that.
I love it because we're on hiatus right now because we're launching the blueprint method, but we'll get back at it. I love it so much because I could have such interesting people come on the show. Well, you know this as part of the joy of doing this. And I could hear all of these amazing things about, everything, aliens to,
Yes.
that
Yes.
all of it. And I can sit there through my higher self and through the channel that I am, and I can receive it all and be, oh, anything is possible. So
Yeah.
just because if there's something that my human brain grabs onto and goes, well, no, you're wrong about that. That's wrong. Who am I to say that you're wrong about that?
Right.
That's
Exactly.
your experience, and you're having that experience. It may not be showing up in
Exactly.
my theme right now, but we know how that changes as well. How many of us, if we go back, years and years and years ago, all of the things that we thought were conspiracy theories, at
Yeah.
some point we were like, yeah, that's crazy. That's not even real. That
Right. Right.
And then now you are here and you're like, it's real. It's
It's real. That's right. That's right.
yeah.
And I think too, one thing about empaths is they tend, and of course, I never say all or always, but they tend to be non-judgmental. Like we don't judge out of the gate. We kind of sit back and watch and listen and observe. Like at least that's what I do. So before I make a judgment on anyone or anything, and it's like that old saying, you don't know because you don't walk in that person's shoes. You don't know what they're experiencing, why they're experiencing it, why they're behaving the way that they do. So I think empaths are good at that, like being non-judgmental.
I would agree that an empath, so like yourself, obviously, you've done some work. You've been, not just talking the talk, but you've been walking the
Right.
talk. And so you are at that elevated space where you can do that. I would say that most empaths at the beginnings of their stage of know thyself and healing are very much dominant fear-based frequency vibrations. That's what they're
Mm,
holding. And when we talk about judgment and being judgmental, that is in its simplicity fear. It's the fear vibration.
right. That makes so
Now,
much sense.
again, it's like the human programming. When we talk about fear, fear is not afraid. It's not I'm afraid of something. It's a frequency that vibrates at a very specific resonance, right?
Hmm.
So we can recognize that people, it's interesting because when we do readings sometimes, and if we can say to somebody, you're holding a lot of fear in your space, and they'll be like,
Yeah.
well, I'm not an afraid person. I don't have any fear.
Mm.
But judgment can show up in the same aspect. It has the same rate of vibration to it.
Ah, right.
So,
That's a
and
good point.
I would say most empaths, depending on where you are on your ascension, right? Another word that we loosely use because it has so many interpretations to it. Having that awareness of how much fear you hold in your projections, in the way you experience things, and
Hmm.
especially around yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
How many empaths do you know will say things like, oh, I have to be really careful about what supplements or vitamins I take because I always have a reaction to them.
Mm.
Now, when somebody makes a statement like that to us, the first thing that spirit does is they go in and say, well, where's this message coming from? Is it coming from the body or the mind?
Yeah.
If this message is
So
coming from
good.
the body, we know that it's programmed. It's coming there, through the programming. If
Sure.
it's coming from the body, then we can say, okay, body, so you're in a more vulnerable state. So we'll be very careful as to what we bring in. But that's not because there's something wrong with the supplement or the herb that's coming in. It's just that the body needs to be in a state of resonance to receive it, if that makes sense.
Mm. Gosh, I never thought of that. That makes a lot of sense. It really does. Now, when are you launching this blueprint method? Like you just said you have a group of people, I assume, that you're working with.
So it's live. We started beta launching it in June. So we've walked through our first few members into the program.
Nice.
Yeah, and so it's live. It's out there. The only way that you can get into the program though is through application. So Spirit was very, very specific about this. This wasn't going to be a program that you could just go on my website and click buy. Because again, it's the sacredness of our container and the way that it's put together, and
Mhm.
there's an application process that you must go through in order to step into it.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
yes, and divine timing is a lot of that. We sit and hold space on what we call blueprint clarity calls, and so this is where they're free calls, and we open up them when we do our lives. We open up spaces on the calendar for this. This is where we sit and hold space with somebody, and we then know energetically divine timing as to whether they're ready to step into, you know,
Oh,
the
nice.
great
Yeah.
rebuild, right?
Yeah.
Um, and this is, again, so important because how many empaths out there have tried a million things, right? Gone to retreats and
They're
shaman.
always taking courses and
Right. Spirit calls them seekers. We become
yes.
these seekers, right? And interesting because when we go through this, when we become the what they call a seeker energy is very much done outside of the body. It's very much done outside of what your actual needs are, like what
Yeah,
you actually need, which is no wonder that we have no lasting results when we go and do these things. It doesn't stick.
exactly.
Yeah, because it doesn't fit the container. It doesn't fit our container because our blueprint is different.
Yeah. I mean, Heidi just made a point. She said, always will be a seeker of knowledge. But I think that's different too. I think you can always be a seeker of knowledge. And when you take these courses, like, and it's like anything when I learn something new, I always, you watch it, observe, sit back, and then I take what I need from it.
Mhm.
But you're right. Empaths are always out there looking, and it's like a double-edged sword because I think it's good to do that in one way, but you need to have a realistic expectation that it's not going to be the be all end all. You're always going to be out there seeking and searching until you find that peace and clarity within yourself. Then anything you learn through these courses is just like an extra. That's how
Mhm.
I look at it.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like so the very first step that we take our members in when you start, we go through a 9-day activation portal. And so
Yeah.
Spirit created this as it's an undoing. They literally called it an undoing. Now,
Mm,
the reason for that is that the frequency of this planet right now, of planet Earth, so that includes everything on it, right? Our food, our
yeah.
supplements, everything that we're doing has never been like this before.
Yeah.
It's in a very, very different state. So this is why all of the old school things that we're doing just
Mhm.
doesn't cut it. It's not.
Yeah.
And if we're seekers, so we've done all the programs, read all the books, taken all the classes, done all of this stuff, we are full energetically as far as what we can receive to bring in new,
Mhm.
right? We have to,
Right.
so we need to clear out all of that stuff that we have learned, because
Yeah.
when you sit and have conversation with somebody and hold space for somebody, and you can acknowledge somebody who has done a lot of work and has done a lot of healing and a lot of
Mhm.
transformation, but you'll see, and they're just saying they get capped off energetically. There's a
Yeah.
cap off. So that means that in order for them to be able to step up and level up, they need to let go of some of the stuff,
Gosh,
right?
that makes so much sense. I guess you let go of the stuff that's just not resonating, right?
Yeah, it's also what's being updated. Like again, there's we have so much, the chemtrails. How do you remove the chemtrails now? The GMOs, our
I
soil
know,
is
it's so
different. It
scary.
doesn't, we have archons around everybody. We have all of this density that it's changed. It's a different, it's like we're still living in the same, we think it's the same world, but it's
It's not.
changed. The
Yeah, it
frequency
has.
is changed. So
It
we have to
absolutely
get
has.
online with it. We have to get online with it. And we're going to see, this is such a interesting time to be on this mission on this planet, because
No.
look at how AI is, everywhere. It's happening everywhere. I have clients that will come and they'll say, "Oh, I asked ChatGPT about this today and it gave me this information."
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because spirit will say when, when somebody comes in like that, it's like this reminder, don't give your power away.
Gosh, no.
Recognize by stepping into your own authority,
Mhm.
your capabilities. And for empaths, that's that recognizing of, you know, there's a difference between something being smart and something being intelligent, right?
Yeah.
And it's that ability to recognize when you see intelligence in something, and then
Yeah.
recognizing that that intelligence is within you, and that's how you're recognizing it because you have a resonance to it.
Absolutely. It's funny because I see AI as a tool used to control humanity, and I think does it have some positive benefits? Yes, but I think it's it, the word nefarious just pops into my head. It's just not, and I'll use it for certain things, but on limited basis. Like sometimes if I need, like if I'm going to interview somebody and I need some more in-depth information or a summary, I'll use it in that respect. But it's because it reminds me of human beings, garbage in, garbage out. If you programming AI with all this garbage, just tons and tons of this information, what do you expect it to produce? And then they're talking about how it has the possibility of becoming sentient. I don't really see that as a possibility. What do you think about that? Do you think AI is a benefit to humanity or
So
not so good?
if you ask me what I think about it, I would say, Jodi Jones, the human, has some ideas about things. And I would prefer to go in and give you what spirit has given me about it
Okay.
because I feel like that's more helpful. They remind me always that within something that is dark or has the potential to be dark, there's always light, the potential to be light. The
Mhm.
technology that AI comes with comes from the light. It's very high vibrational, it's very high speed, and again, this technology comes in because there are tools that the light is working in behind the scenes to bring, we have galactic beings that bring us this technology. This is not from Earth. This
I'd like
is
to believe that. I really would. I mean,
oh, absolutely.
I know that to be true as well. I don't know about AI as I mean, I think you're right. I think it does have the potential to be a good tool for humanity and save lives and make lives better. But at
Yeah,
the
it's
same
also a
time,
really great teaching tool, though. Remember, every single time one of these like big moments or big leveling ups come in, it's opportunity for us to do more work. So,
right.
with AI coming in right now, you are supposed to be stepping into, first of all, the recognition that its energy frequency capabilities is much different than your own. So if I have a math equation that I need to figure out, like the other day, I'm we're doing kitchen renovation, so I don't have access to my celery juicer. So I've had to order my celery juice from someplace. Now I do 32 ounces of celery juice every day, and so I needed to calculate how many bottles I needed to do. They had 355 milliliter bottles. This stuff is stuff that I can put into
Yeah.
AI, and it can pop out my, I don't have to crunch my head. That kind of stuff is perfect because it has the capability to do that.
Yes, absolutely. It's a fantastic tool in that respect. That's for
Yes.
sure.
And also, I recognize though, because I've had friends that use it and they use it as their therapist and they use it as their
Yeah.
psychic and their advisor and all of this. And when I'm reading the words from AI or I'm hearing the words from AI, I can feel the lack of light in it.
Yeah.
You just feel the lack of light in that whole equation, which is
Yeah.
what we are supposed to be doing. Our mission is, as empaths, to feel into something and recognize the light or the dark in it.
Oh,
That's right.
absolutely.
And then take that step further and recognize that that darkness can be released, the density can be released, and we can bring in more light, right? If you break every aspect into this, so the political aspect, all of the things that come in from
Yeah.
the government, all of this, you know, You could go on YouTube and watch hours and hours of videos where they're telling you that we're going to go to a digital ID and they're going to take over our land and we're going
Oh,
to own
yeah.
nothing. You can go in and you can listen to that and you can feel the fear pumping through it.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can go in and you can energetically check into the powers that be that are doing it. And if you get really good at this, you'll recognize that there's a daftness there. It's, for lack of a better word,
Mm,
the there's not an intelligence there. And the true intelligence comes from the light. The light holds the intelligence. So if we kind of remind ourselves about that through everything, then we can kind of laugh at the density and of the, the projections of this is going to happen, that's going to happen. It's lacking the intelligence, which is why AI will never be a sentient being,
mm,
because only a soul has that aspect of
exactly.
light.
Right. I mean, I do think, as Heidi, I believe, mentioned, it's the user's intention. So you can take anything, and if you have bad intention, you'll get bad results, but and there are people that are using AI for not so good intentions. And but I think at the end of the day, as it develops and evolves, it will become a great tool for humanity. Absolutely. But I
Mhm.
think we're not quite there yet. Like we have a ways to go.
It's interesting because we've been here before, though. This is the part that, we've had other civilizations on this planet that came in with massive technology. This is not new, right? This is us going through it again and being like, okay, so how did we mess up last time? How did we cause the
Yeah.
entire,
Like
so
Tartaria, you're talking about like the
yeah.
Tartarian Empire. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And we are, every single empath on this planet is an old soul. And an
Yeah.
old soul is a soul that is incarnated many, many, many times, right? So
Mhm.
we know at the time of Atlantis, we were here. We were here
Yeah.
doing this. So this is where often, we'll feel this familiarity to stuff that's we're coming into.
Yeah.
And this time though, it's like, okay, how do I level up through this? How do I and this is where this will shift humanity the most. We come inside, like we do the know thyself. We work on ourselves
Mm.
first and foremost before we're trying to fix the outside world.
And that's not an easy job to do. And
It's
and
not.
that's it's not. And that's why I think like doing a lot of shadow work, and I talk about that often. You really need to do the shadow work, whether you journal it or any way that you choose to do it, as long as you do it. You have to go within and deal with your trauma, whatever that is, and find healing. There's a lot of wounded souls out there, and trust me, I can't even walk into a restaurant sometimes without getting overwhelmed with that energy. So I have to like say, I'm going to eat dinner now. I'm shutting it down, but
Right.
you have to kind of shut it down. But it's sad, and I can't help but feel sad because there's a lot wrong that needs to be righted. We have a ways to go, but I think we're on that path as far as humanity goes. And people like you are helping humanity in so many ways deal and heal. So God bless you for that. And I think that's what attracted me to want to speak to you in the first place. Because like I said, I was just out there on social media and I happened to see your face and I was just immediately told, stop and bookmark this page. And that's what I did. And it turned into this wonderful conversation. And I'm very grateful for that.
Love that. Love that. Yes, synchronicities at its best,
Yes,
for sure.
absolutely. So you're working on this. You said it's up and running. What else do you have in the works? Are you going to think about writing a book or anything like that? What does Jodi see in her future?
Yeah, so the program is live, so the 369 Blueprint Method program. We have our live events that we're doing. So we've got November 26th is our next event where we do medical mediumship readings and we do healings, and we talk about some of the stuff we talked about here, but how the program can support others. So we have that going. I have been writing a book for about 6 years now. I'm so envious whenever I get the authors on my podcast and they're like, "Oh, I'm
Yeah.
on my second book or my third
Yeah.
book."
Yeah.
And I'll be like, but I know for me, again, I trust the process. I am getting to that point now. Surrender was a big thing for me. I had to go
Mhm.
through this and learn surrender. But I know that my book is coming together. They said to me that once the program was created, once there were souls going through the program, that would be the completion of my book. So I feel like we're
Oh.
very, very close to pulling that all together and having the book out there for everybody to be able to
Oh, that's
experience.
gonna be an exciting chapter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been an absolutely wonderful, enlightening conversation. And I'm so grateful to you to be able to have it. And of course, everyone, you can visit Jodi and learn more about her program and fill out an application, which is what they would have to do, right? At
Yep.
jodi-jones.com, right?
Absolutely. If you just go to the website, you'll see there's actually a page called the 369 Blueprint Method, and everything that you could possibly want to know is on there. And then come and see us live on the 26th. We're almost at capacity. It amazes me how quickly this fills
Save a
up.
spot for me.
Yes, I'd love for you to come. Absolutely. We had to actually bump up our Zoom level because we keep on selling out
Yeah.
of booking up. So yeah, but come there because then you get to experience firsthand. Like, spirit. I'm so honored that I have a spirit team that has chosen me to do the work. But yeah, come and experience it firsthand. And thank you so much for having me on the show. I
Of
love the
course.
work that you're
Of course.
doing.
Of course. And thank you, Heidi, and everyone in the chat for their comments. And I hope we can bring you back again. There's so many things we could talk about. Maybe after the new year, I would love to have
Absolutely.
you back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'd love to. Thank you.
Thank you, Jodi. I'll be in touch soon.
Okay.
Take care,
Thank
dear.
you. Thank
Bye
you.
bye. Well, that was really an enlightening and wonderful conversation. And thanks so much to everyone. We've had so many wonderful comments and questions in the chat, and I'm going to go through them later. What is this here? The 369 is vital. Great. Thank you so much. You guys rock. Thank you. And of course, don't forget to join us tomorrow. We are going to have another event, another podcast, and that will be with Maria Toso. I believe I pronounced her name correctly. And we're going to talk about healing what's hurt using the somatic process. So she talks about how to get results when therapy fails. And I love talking about all these different modalities of healing because they're different for everyone. And like we were talking about before, if you can grab a piece of anything from these conversations and benefit by it, that's that's everything for me and for so many of our guests. So thank you all. Blessings so much to you, and we will see you tomorrow. God bless. Thanks again, everyone in the chat. Take care. Bye bye.